401k advisors want to build a scalable practice, but aren't always sure what to do next. Welcome to Outcomes, the podcast designed to help advisors think, make decisions, and cast a vision to create a business for the future. Here's your host, Ross Marino, financial planner, author, speaker, and CEO of Advisor2X.
Welcome to Outcomes, the podcast. Today, I am joined by Sam Michell, CEO of Sentinel Benefits and Financial Group. Hello, Sam.
Hey, Ross, how you doing?
I am good. It's great to have you on the podcast here. I know you've been working behind the scenes with the Wealth at Work Committee, our conference that we have in the fall, and the Agenda Committee. It gets pretty intense. There's a lot of passionate people, and in this industry, if you're successful, you have to be passionate. We all are. We love what we do. We're passionate about it. And I know that makes for a pretty intense experience. Can you talk a little bit about the Agenda Committee and what it's like?
Yeah, I think passion's a great word, but I'd also add another one. I think it's just so energizing. And, you know, the group of 6 people, and we have Lisa as well, that's leading us. And the conversations are just, again, energizing to me because they're talking about the things that we should be talking about as leaders in our business and how we're going to solve the problems for our clients. And I really think that, you know, as I look forward to Nashville, I'm really excited just to bring more people to the conversation because the agenda is, I think it's going to be action-packed. It's going to be advisor-focused with really trying to get our feet back on the ground after the pandemic. So when we go through this and talk about how to make this really great for everyone, it's really going to be the people. I think it's the people on the committee that I've learned from, and they're a lot smarter than me, and I really look forward to meeting so many more people that can add to the conversation and make us, tip of the spear, forward-thinking people for our clients, and that's really important to me.
I'm looking forward to it, and I've mentioned it many times on the podcast, so I won't go off on the monologue, but the trend of bringing wealth management to the workplace is what excites me most about the business. And so we loved it. People are on the same page. It's moving forward. I think it's exciting. And you understand the wealth side. You understand the 401k side. You actually have a really good perspective globally of the industry, and that comes from your leadership role. So could you talk a little bit about what you do? Because as I ask you questions and we get your insight, we want to know where you're coming from.
Sure. I mean, I think Sentinel is somewhat unique in that we have a lot of different areas of focus. We are an advisor. We have a financial planning, wealth management business, but we also are a TPA on the record keeping side of retirement plans, as well as what we traditionally call cafeteria plans, FSAs, HSAs, COBRA benefits, and we're a group insurance brokerage. So we have a full breadth of services that we have to provide, and we have to do it well. And I've had the opportunity to lead all of those throughout my career here. And I think it's really informed not only how I lead Sentinel, but how I've learned from people what's most important. And I think, the mistake that we make in the retirement business is we're always talking about the future. And we're always trying to solve the needs for somebody that's, at 65 or 67, and they might be 25 years old right now. And the primal brain, I don't think thinks that far ahead. I think we have to solve for today. And I see that a lot when I talk to people about their health needs, whether it's, what plan do I choose? I have 3 choices, which medical plan is right for me and my family, or I have an HSA benefit that I just had a claim that came in. I need it paid right away. Those are the pressure points that I see that are much more impactful to the person. And that's what's top of mind to them. We need to bring that conversation. I think that's what I'm really excited about with the Advisor2X conference coming up, is people want to talk about this in a different light in the retirement side of our world than we have in the past. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation.
It's definitely situational financial planning, and it's what the workplace needs. It's what our industry needs, frankly, because that's what people need. When something is top of mind, there's a reason. It's because something happened, life happened, plans change, and they have to make decisions. And to be there in the workplace, that's certainly the trend. It's happening and it's high impact. I'm excited about it. Again, you know me, I can monologue about this all day long. Done it before, don't need to do it again. But you look at the slogan of your company, it's health plus wealth. It's what we do. Man, I love that, Sam. Can you talk about how you came up with health plus wealth? It's what we do.
So yeah, I think, so I'll kind of go further back to get to where we are today. And, we have always done some version of health and wealth since we incorporated in 1987. We started out as a cafeteria plan administrator for new plan, and we were a TPA and broker back. This predates me, but we started really with both sides of the house. They were very siloed. Fast forward to 2001, and we got into the advice business. and added a broker dealer and really started to, create a broader ecosystem, but we were still siloed. And we still had, we did a great job, but today we're going to talk about our health benefits with you. Tomorrow we're going to talk about our retirement, Mr. Client. And we really didn't get our arms around what type of an advantage we might have, because we had the health side, we had the retirement side, and we also had this wealth education financial planning arm that we had added in the early 2000s. Fast forward to 2013, and we're in one of our strategy meetings internally about how can we make Sentinel better? What is our competitive advantage? And it kind of hit us right between the eyes. We have one, we just didn't know it, which is we need to bring the conversation together. We need to put that plus in the middle there. It's not like a slash, it's a plus. And we wanted to really create a simplified approach for employers. And that's really what it started. It really recalibrated our sales focus and our service focus from an employer standpoint in 2013. Fast forward, 2016 or 2017, and I think it again hit us right between the eyes with, all right, what this really means is we need to be better stewards for the people in those employer organizations. It really has evolved from not just a health and wealth employer focus, but to a health and wealth employee education focus. And I think that's been really exciting for me, because it's really what I'm passionate about, because we're building confidence in the workplace in ways that we hadn't been able to do before. And I really think it started in that 2013 meeting where we said, we're putting our stake in the ground that health and wealth is who Sentinel is. At that time, we were one of the pioneers, in our opinion. In 2021, we're one of many, and we're okay with that because we think it's so important.
As I listen to you, it sounds like you're describing, you've gone from here's what we have available, here's an offering, to figuring out how do we take a plan offering to make it a participant benefit. It's about implementation. And I hear you saying you kind of shifted that focus where you're looking at the participants and saying, how do we connect with them? We make this available, but how do we connect with them to help them make decisions? Mm-hmm. Is that what you're getting at? Is that you're trying to shift from more of the participant up type focus instead of the plan down, so you can really find what they're doing and where they're at?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said at the beginning of this, which is I've been informed by listening to people, and I think we made the mistake at Sentinel that we can just solve for that one need today. That conversation that Ross and I are having today is about retirement. But Ross on his mind has 6 other things going on. And until we realized that we had to broaden our approach, both from an education standpoint and really just a conversational standpoint, we cannot diagnose the problems that someone might have if we weren't taking that broader education approach. And we really shifted in 2016, and really we took commission-based financial planners out of the retirement plans and put what we call financial wellness educators in. Sole purpose is to understand that person's needs, whether it's Medicare, whether it's health, whether it's retirement savings at that point, so that we can best align the strategy for that person within the scope of what we can do well. And I think that's really important.
We talked about how hardcore some 401k advisors can be, right? We often have a narrow focus when we're a specialist. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. We all go through it, especially being passionate about what we do. And some of the statements you hear from the 401k advisors are, we'll take 2 of them. One is, you have to invest in the 401k, unless of course you're about to be homeless next month, and maybe that's the exception, right? So number 1, you have to invest in the 401k, and number 2, no matter what you do, never, ever take a loan from your 401k. Are those hardcore rules that we should live by?
Ooh, that's a good question. And it's one that I've actually seen people cringe at in conferences, our own, by the way, and also industry ones that I've attended, where someone will get on that podium and say, the worst thing that you can do for your financial well-being is take a loan out of your 401k plan. And they will, just fists on the ground, like this is the absolute truth. My problem with that is there's no empathy for the person. There's no understanding that might be the only way they can get a collateral loan to pay their rent that month, or that's the only way that they can buy their first house, whatever it might be. These are big decisions that people are making for their families. And we read in a textbook that loans are bad, or we saw the math that in 30 years, if you take a loan out, this is what it means for your 401k balance. Again, that is not putting the person first. And I think we need to do a better job of, again, empathizing, understanding what people need, and then solving problems. And I think to your point about getting in the plan, hell or high water, yeah, it's a really smart idea if you can. But if you've got $300,000 of debt and no one's explained to you how to balance, the needs of tomorrow with the realities of today, that person's just it's analysis paralysis. And they need some more support to get in instead of being told you made the wrong decision.
It reminds me of the Dave Ramsey perspective where debt is evil. And if you're coming from a place of abuse, I get it. There are people who have used debt and gotten in serious trouble, life and death scenarios, health issues. I get all that. That's not everybody. So it's always going to be that balance. How do we try to help the people from avoid making critical mistakes without offering somebody something that, yes, they're mostly responsible. Maybe life happened and they just have to get some help one way or another. So it's a tough one. It's certainly not an easy situation, but I do love the table pounders on that. And I can laugh at the table pounders because I have pounded the table so many times in my career, Sam. I knew the way things needed to be done so many years ago. And then, of course, I lived life and you realize, okay, so I have a way, but there's always other ways to look at it. And it's just much more complex out there. And I think when you look at it from the participant standpoint, that obviously changes things. You had brought up a comment about financial wellness and you had said, I wonder if people are just waiting for us to ask, because we were talking about adoption in the workplace and how much of it is going on. But the question is, if we ask the people, participant level, if they needed some help and wanted to use the service, that's probably the question you need. So it's not a matter of how much is being adopted, but how many people aren't even being asked? I mean, do you think there's an implementation issue in the industry right now?
I definitely do. And I think, I mean, I look right in the mirror with us. We have found a lot of tools to check the box that we can solve for those financial wellness needs. But again, to your point, I think, and I think the adoption across the industry is fairly, everyone I talk to is fairly similar. It's not great. And if you add a gamification piece of it, or a, give to get, you get the chance at a tablet, or you get a chance that's winning something, it goes up a little bit, but it's still less than half the workforce in every stat I've seen. And I think it's because we're waiting for people to come to the door instead of going knocking on other doors and having the opportunity to bring the solutions to people. It's like we're creating a seek and find environment. That's really hard to do when you don't know where to start.
I remember speaking with Joe DeNoyer, and he was talking about how he gamified financial wellness. And if you did this level of activity, you would go into the drawing for an Apple Watch.
Right.
And the numbers just erupt. And he was telling me these stories. And even now, I can't stop chuckling as I think about it. Creative guy, but it just shows that gamification is a real thing. I remember when that was a main presentation at the Napa 401k Summit a few years ago.
Yep.
And my first thought, right, full disclosure, because you got to laugh at yourself. I'm like, really? Gamification at a 401k conference? And then I read the description and thought, yes, gamification at a 401k conference. I got to go to this session, because sometimes you have to think through some things. And yeah, it was a brilliant session. It was great. It was forward thinking, but that's how people work. So who knew just offering them a shot at an Apple Watch will help them actually retire with more money than they wouldn't have had otherwise. I mean, it's just brilliant. It's the nudge, right?
It's the nudge you need. And I think then it puts the pressure on us as advisors to make sure that it's I came, I set it up, I got put in the drawing, and I never came back. I think we have a duty and an obligation to those people to make sure that they stay engaged however we can. And that's why I'm really excited about what I'm seeing in our industry from a workplace standpoint. We know that a huge percentage of people, whether it's 99% or 90%, it doesn't matter, really only get their opportunities for support in the workplace, whether it's financial or health related. That could be education, that could be the tools for saving. Most people only know to get that through the workplace. So it's a heavy burden for employers, but it's a heavy burden for us to make sure that we're there shoulder to shoulder with those people, at least to help them gain the confidence to make those right decisions at each of those mileposts. And I think that's exciting.
It is exciting. Fees have been going down quite a bit. 401ks, looks like the asset management fees are headed towards zero. Some cases, it may look like they're zero already. Is that going to continue? Will the 401k cost on the investment side be zero? And if so, what do you think that means to the industry?
So that's less exciting. I think, we've been talking about the race to zero for probably a decade, right? Somewhere around
Sure.
there. I don't think it's, maybe I'm an optimist. I don't think it's going to go to zero. And again, you said it might look like zero, but we all know the truth that it's not really zero.
Right.
I think it's just, again, it's that behavioral piece of it that we have to be careful of. We can't make 401ks free, because I think then it dilutes what we're doing. I think um, there may be a shift, and we're already seeing that there might be a seismic shift in how it's paid or what it looks like from a fee perspective, but I just don't see how it can ever be free when you look at what we're burdened with from an advisor and the record keepers, just from a, just look at cyber coming in and what that's going to do from the DOL now, and you know, how many mechanisms there are for distributions and loans and payrolls. There's a lot of teeth around this thing that I think, to do it well, we'd be doing a disservice to what we do every day if it was free.
And it would be a disservice. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be a prospect that I'm going to talk to down the road that says, well, so-and-so down the street said asset management is free. And the conversation grinds to a halt, as I think it's not free. And what may come out of my mouth would be, well, actually, no, it's not free. So now I'm telling the prospect that they're dumb, by the way. So that generally doesn't work in my experience.
Yeah.
So we have the challenge of how do you explain, the services that you offer, the price that you charge, the value, and so forth. Wealth management seems like a variable that is coming in there. How do you price it? How do you quantify ROI? I know there's lots of challenges with that, but what we're starting to see, it comes down to velocity of change, and it looks like it's increasing. So is this the building tsunami? Do you see it just starting to build? Do you think we're still in early stages, or what's going on?
So I think it's building, and I think we're in the early stages. And I actually, I looked at this financial planning in the workplace. I think it's going to come faster than, we've been talking about HSAs, advisor managed HSAs, for 5 years or so, and I don't think that's not going to go as fast as I think potentially the financial planning in the workplace could take off, because that HSA component will be part of this overall financial planning offering in the workplace. I think they'll actually go hand in glove. But I do think we're in the first, second, or third inning here. I think, I think it's going to be a lot of toe dipping in the water at first. But as you and I know, what's going to lead the most changes as the big behemoths in the industry start doing this, and we start losing more clients than we thought we were because we didn't do this. We're going to see a lot more people getting in defensively instead of offensively, and that's where I think, I'm not even sure if that's a good answer, but I think that's going to be where the tsunami is going to take off. Is just a fear of being left behind. And we were always a retirement focused advisor, let's say, and I wanted to stay out of the wealth because that's not my core competency. This though is an opportunity to look at financial planning more broadly, and if we can find ways to understand that we're helping people in a broader context than what we were trying to do in the retirement plan, it could be a very clean transition and growth of all of our businesses. So it's interesting to see, but again, I think it's early on. And again, I think it's a lot of this so far is the industry bringing these ideas to the employer. What's really going to change this is when the employers are bringing next gen ideas on this topic to us.
So many thoughts, so many questions that go on with that. I wonder if the tsunami triggers when the advisor who maybe lost one or two plans because they didn't offer wellness, all of a sudden loses 5 or 6 in a year, right? Because all of a sudden it hits me now. I'm forced to change when all of a sudden the change is hitting home. It's one thing to talk about a trend. I don't think many people are going to argue that wellness isn't a good thing, that offering people ability or assistance to make financial decisions in the workplace, it's a good thing, right? That's great. However, should I shift my business model, invest time, energy, resource allocation to something that may or may not bring me ROI? Early adopters, sure, they're going to go for it because they're going to say, this is a trend, right? I want to dominate. I want to own it. And if you try to do what I do 3 to 5 years from now, it's too late. I already own it. Right. So I understand the trailblazers that are going to be out there. A lot of people are going to follow up, but I think it goes also back to the participant level. Now with wellness, we find ourselves in the industry telling people that financial planning services may be free or minimal cost, and delivering that to people, I think might be more of a barrier if they actually think they're getting something free, because there's always a catch, man. There's always a catch if it's free. So do you think it's a delivery issue, and maybe we can do a little better job of explaining the value to people?
I think it is. And I think it's two-pronged on that one. I think it's an awareness issue for employers. But as we get down to that level of talking to people, talking to employees in those organizations, it's exactly the same answer I gave you on the 401k free question, which is the more that we create a narrative that this is free or complimentary, people are not going to engage to the level that's going to be successful for them. You know, you've done this forever. Financial planning, you get out of it what you put into it as that person that's going to bring that data to their advisor. And I think you and I were talking about this. There's no magic wand that says you can just poof, here's a financial plan. It didn't take any resources.
I'm sorry, Sam. I actually have a magic wand, which we'll get to a little bit later. Had to correct you, but carry on.
Okay. But no, I think it's going to be interesting that the way this is going to, our experience anyway, the way this is going to work early on for us to really understand the market is the employers are going to have to probably help finance some of these tools that come into the marketplace early on, especially from the works, the voluntary financial plan. We have mechanisms to make it more cost effective, obviously at a group level. But I think it's going to require the employer to pay for some or all of this as we get going on this. And that's what we're seeing in our client base, which creates, I think, that issue that you just brought up of then how do you make it not look like it's free to the end user?
Part of it's going to be delivery. If we let people know that financial planning services have been, keywords coming up, pause for effect, paid for by your employer, that's now a different perspective. To just say it's included, it's complimentary, it's free, might be a catch, or it's an add-on that doesn't really cost us much, so we're going to add it on for free and make it sound like a big deal, a little bit of marketing there. No, but I think to deliver and say this is paid for by the employer, now they know that someone wrote a check, or in this current age, transferred something digital, and all of a sudden you have something that has value to them. So maybe that's going to be part of the delivery. But I also think it goes back to situational financial planning versus financial planning. Most people aren't goal driven. How many people looked at their goals, if they even have them? Actually, how many people have goals? And of those people, how many actually have looked at them in the last day or two? I read mine. You probably read yours. It's a single digit number. We're not goal driven as human beings. We're more short-term driven. And in many cases, you can't even process what might happen 20 years from now because life is intense. We got to help them make decisions. So I think delivering that to people and helping them understand situational, we have help for you, is going to make a big difference. But the plan sponsor has to be a believer. I don't think the participant is going to have a problem with it. If you deliver it, like you said, they're just waiting for us to ask. I think that's great insight out there. But we still are going to have the obstacle of how do you get the employer to do something when they don't really know that their participants are just waiting to ask. Any ideas on how to encourage plan sponsors to do that?
Well, I think what's in our favor on this from the education standpoint and really understanding the need is employers, at least the employers we talk to, their employees are telling them that they need help. They need help in non-traditional benefit ways. It's not just the insurance plans that we're putting in place at our organizations or the retirement plan. It is debt management, it's saving for college, it's preparing my family for the future. Those are things we're hearing. So I think, and it goes back to my point earlier, if all of us as individuals are getting our support in the workplace, employers, they don't want to do the work, but they want to be able to find ways to help those people the best they can. That's the whole point, especially from an HR perspective. And hopefully if you're a people first organization, you want to find solutions for your people. And I think that's what I think is really cool about the financial planning opportunities that we have as an industry is it's such a broad definition. Ross's needs from a financial planner could be very different than mine. That could be very different from that next person. And and I love what you said, if employers see how valuable that is to their people, that's not free. That's an incredible investment that the employer is making. And that's the story we have to tell, because I think it is all connected, because it is now about the person. I think that's been the biggest change in our business. 20 years ago, we were selling to the employer. It was about the employer. And now it's the employer is there. It's a conduit to solve issues for people. And I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and I've heard you mention that before, how there's the shift from the focus on products to now we're looking at it through the eyes of the participant. And that's a game changer to me. When we don't approach it with an institutional mentality, actually, we still have to have an institutional mentality. That's the wrong words. But when we start with from the participant's perspective, the end user. What do they really need? What problems do they need to have solved, or do they want help with so they can solve it on their own? I think that's where financial planning rolls out. But you nailed it in the fact that it's a broad spectrum of what people need and how they want to be engaged. So now you're stuck with the challenge of, do you just do one-off? Do you do hourly? Do you do a small financial planning package? Is there a free 800 number Zoom connection for the first hour? And then after that, your clock starts ticking. I mean, how do you build out models for all this stuff?
So I think what's going to be really interesting is there's probably 50 different answers you can give in terms of how a practice might think it's best for them. But from Sentinel's perspective, we are not looking to go down the hourly rate. We're really trying to package this as digestible to the employer, because again, cost will probably be a barrier that's going to be real. It always is. But we really want to create through the workplace either a discounted, like you said, financial planning package. I don't know exactly what you called it, but it's just, there's value in that, and whether that's a shared cost or totally by the employer or by the participant could be decided, or like a traditional voluntary benefit where it's a per head fee that the employer is paying and everyone has access to it. My concern with that one is, yes, we can say we offered it to everyone, but it's exactly what you brought up before. Is it going to be just like some of the other tools we've rolled out with financial wellness, which is not enough people are knowing about it? It's that, did you go and find them, or did you ask for them to seek and find it? And that's my concern. And we have this, by the way, in our toolkit, is that per head may not yield the intentional results that we're hoping for. But time will tell on that. I'm not sure I'm right.
I wonder if that's an obstacle, Sam, to many advisory firms where they still view it as a proof of concept from a profitability standpoint. We know the need is out there. We know that we can deliver and fill that need, but maybe the proof of concept of here's how you can deliver it, charge for it, maintain margin, and make an impact. So maybe because it's so early that we really can't prove that from a number standpoint. Do you think that's the big obstacle?
We're definitely in the proof of concept stage, for sure. I mean, our passions are before our profits, that's for sure on this. And I think
story of my life, Sam.
Yeah, mine too. I think we're definitely in the proof of concept stage. There's no doubt about it. I think I think we're, as an industry, I think we're correct in the need, but absolutely, I can't even add anything. It's exactly that. It's a proof of concept still, and I think it may not be months, it might be years before we know exactly what that looks like. Because my biggest thing, and I don't know really what this looks like yet, but the financial planning in the workplace is the start. But let's say that you leave that organization. How do we keep that connection to that person? Because we've started helping them along the way. There's a lot of things that we have not identified as how do we make sure we solve, which for us in our passion play at Sentinel is how do we help that person? That person's going to move around a little bit. I don't want to disconnect from the employer, what we're doing as an organization, but I never want to forget about that person either, So it's this weird, it's going to be very important for us to understand how to solve the needs of that person through the life of their own journey. And hopefully we're a part of it.
And now you brought up another obstacle, which I hadn't even mentioned, is that you're investing time and building trust in a participant, an employee who is going to be moving on down the road to another company and probably another plan. So not only do I have the challenge of what is ROI from this relationship, I now have to factor in the limited time span that many employees have with an employer, and that I'm only going to be able to work with them for a period of time, because long-term, there may be no ROI because they leave, other than the people that may be within a year or two of retirement and are in that wind down stage. Probably the odds are pretty good that I'll still have the relationship with them the day they retire. But someone 10 years from retirement, someone in peak earnings years, they may move around for a better opportunity. So that's one more obstacle. You think that'll be a hindrance?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's going to be a hindrance of just human nature, which is if a CFP is working, this turns into, it's altruistic in what we're trying to do, but it's also a prospecting opportunity, right? For creating those relationships. If I'm 25 years old and you've brought me through a financial plan that really helps me solve for some of my debt needs, but I don't have any investable money and I'm not going to for a while, there's human nature in that there's going to be, you only have so much time to care for your own family and to build revenue streams. I think that's a hindrance potentially for for what I've been talking about.
So now we have to make sure that ROI has a present value that I can quantify, because I'm delivering services that I'm getting paid for, because the future earn, which is what many advisors would look at. Hey, once these people retire, I'll be able to work with them. Well, if you're an independent advisor, maybe you don't care as much if they move, because you're in a position to help them out because you're actually independent. But if it's a true workplace benefit, now you probably don't have that same opportunity. So, man, we are in the early stages, aren't we?
We are. But I think there's opportunity there too, though. I do. I really believe that. I believe that if this works to the way that I think it can, that employer is trusting you to take care of their people. And I think there's also embedded in that, in my opinion, is caring for them means setting up opportunities to help them beyond the workplace. I think there's a story there. We're solving issues in the workplace, but you have a life outside of the workplace. This is how we're going to help you. I think that we're in the early stages. We need to build that story, because I think that's going to be incredibly important.
It's exciting. There's good reason many advisory firms aren't all in from a resource allocation standpoint, and we've touched on many of them today. There are uncertainties. We have to figure out how to maintain margin, monetize this, especially in a short-term environment where employees may be leaving, or employees that just need situational help and won't have other opportunities for many, many years. Hopefully the industry will keep figuring it out. The desire's there, the need is there. Can we build a profitable business model? That's going to take some time, Sam, as we all know. So yeah, the tsunami hasn't started. It's a proof of concept. So I think I'm even more convinced than ever that we are so early in this ball game, and what an exciting time for the Trailblazers to know you get in and figure it out now. It's going to be a while before the rest of the market catches up with you. So how about one more question, which is, what didn't I ask that you would like to talk about?
What do you think that at the end of the day is going to be? So I think, I look at things from the past 18 months, probably in the pandemic. If I were looking, and I look back, I was appointed CEO of Sentinel in 2016. So 2016 was an inflection point for me, where I did our planning. We did a 5-year plan. And at that point I said, in 10 years, so I was wrong. In 10 years, it's going to be all about the individual. We're not going to be in the B2C business, but it's going to look something like that. Half it. I missed it badly, because it's definitely become that already. How do you see that? Do you think I'm right on that, or do you think it's not quite here yet? Or
I think that the desire is there, the need is there. We're just not sure how to build a business model and maintain margin. And just looking at scale, I don't think solves the problem, because if it's one-on-one that we need, and here's the issue, and I'll try to make it short. If it's one-on-one financial advice, that's what people want. It's as Todd Timmerman says, the failure of fintech is certain inflection points need a human. I just interviewed him and I thought that was great, right? There's certain points people need people. They don't want to use the tech. So what we're talking about here is one-on-one advice that comes with a human. If it's not profitable one-on-one, it's not going to be profitable when it's 10,000 on 10,000. So scale only offers so much, right? That's what I think the issue is. And that's why I think we're in such the early stages, is one-on-one as a financial planner is not profitable with smaller clients. We know that as financial planners. I don't care if you put me in the workplace. One-on-one still has an hourly cost to me, the planner, and the organization that supports me. And if I can't help people with smaller assets who don't generate a lot of revenue one-on-one outside of the workplace, I think it's going to be a challenge inside the workplace. So yes, totally early stages. However, I don't think we're close to the solution yet, because one-on-one is expensive and it's tough for these people to justify paying what we really need for one-on-one time.
I agree with you. And I agree with what Todd said. It's absolutely the way we built our business. And I believe it in my core. And I think he's 100% right. There are inflection points in life where tech will never solve your issues.
Right. Yeah. And that's why behind me is my book called Shaping Change, right? How to respond when life disrupts your retirement plans, because that's exactly what happens. Your life becomes so disrupted because of some event. You need the 3 things that are critical. You need knowledge, experience and objectivity.
Mhm.
I can't get that from an app on my phone, right? I cannot get it. I need a person for that. But if I need a person who's skilled in those areas, I have to pay for it. And that's not so simple, or at least in this current environment, I don't think the marketplace has figured out how to do that and maintain margin yet. But we're all stubborn and passionate, right? So nobody's walking away from this.
Yep.
We are humans. We will figure it out. We just came up with a vaccine worldwide within months
Right.
and now distributed all over the world. I mean, come on. So if the problem's big enough and people are passionate enough, we will figure it out. I definitely believe in human nature on that. We'll figure it out eventually. So let's shift to the final aspect. It is the magic wand question. My Disney magic wand right here. And yes, you may not technically have a magic wand, but not trying to brag, I do. And those of you just listening to the podcast, I'm showing it on video here. I can't give it to you, but just saying, Sam, if I let you wave my magic wand, what would you use it for?
Great question. It's a very bedazzled wand too, by the way. It's very distracting.
Is Disney certified, brother?
Yeah. No, I think we've talked a lot about, and I believe it, there's a passion here that we've talked about in helping people, but we've just also over the last 20 or 30 minutes talked about all the road bumps we've seen as an industry. And my hope, if you could give me the magic wand, is that we could clarify what the heck we do for people so that they can understand how much we can help. And I still think that's a roadblock, is it's analysis paralysis, it's lack of confidence. It's so much information. I wish there was a simple button for this that people could say, yep, I got it. I know exactly what it is that the advisor community can do for me, and that they have my best interest first. And I understand exactly how to get there, because we're a long way from that too.
Fantastic. Sam Michell, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Ross.
Thank you for listening to Outcomes. Subscribe now to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Advisor 2X. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.